I'm on the DLF stand and I'm with an old friend of mine, Derek Smith, who's just told me sales and marketing
Manager for DLF UK.
For DLF UK, I got there. I'm good at names, not so good at job titles.
Yeah.
Well, it's lovely to see you. And what you're on your stand at the moment, you're pushing something new, a survey, and you were telling me a little bit about it before we started. Yep. And it's fascinating. You just give us a brief outline of what the survey is about and what it hopes to achieve.
Basically, as well as being here to meet all our customers, old and new, and promote some of the products, this year we're trying to do something to give back a little bit to the industry. And as you probably know, DLF is one of the biggest grass breeders in the world, and one of the big challenges for breeders is that at the moment most people are familiar with this booklet, the turfgrass seed booklet, and this is the holy grail for turf managers. Basically, the booklet is largely focused on shoot density, and that's the main measure, shoot density visual merit. One of the downsides for the breeders is if you purely focus on density, you're also creating an environment which is more prone to disease. So the number one pressure that we're hearing from turf managers over these days here at the show is environmental stress. The climate's getting hotter, drier, or colder and wetter.
And windier.
So yeah, exactly. Environmental extremes. And then the other, by far biggest problem is disease. And you combine increased disease pressure with a political environment where governments are trying to reduce the amount of chemicals that are available, and you're basically heading for the perfect storm. So as a breeding company, we're then faced with a dilemma, because we can keep on breeding for purely density to get higher up the list, or we can be a friend of the turf managers and we can start to develop more stress tolerant, more disease resistant varieties. So with that in mind, what we're doing here at the show this year is we've started this program called Disease Watch, and we're asking people to help us fight turf disease. And so very simply, you can come along to the stand, or you can go onto the DLF website, scan the QR code, and then there's a very, very short questionnaire just trying to find out what diseases you've had, how frequently you're getting them, and on what surfaces. And what this does, it helps us build up a better picture of the spread of diseases, because it's changing, and that helps us build a business case to justify investing more money in geneticists and new trialling systems to develop more disease-resistant varieties for the future. So that's changing
the focus for a breeding company is like turning around a super tanker, because 15 years is a long time. So it's and the focus 15 years ago is different to the focus now.
Absolutely, yeah.
It must be frustrating thinking we've cracked it and all of a sudden those goalposts have moved.
Yeah, well, as my managing director says, when it's 15 years' time, a lot of us, if you're as old as I am,
and
then,
me,
then I probably won't be here when some of these varieties are there. So as he says, we're planting trees for the future, basically. So it's critical that we make this move, because climate is moving faster, the marketplace is moving, and it's critical that we develop new varieties now for the future, basically.
It's incredible, Derek, because if you were to speak to the layperson, you think, I put seed in the ground and it grows.
Yep.
The background to it, the science that goes into it, the technology that goes into it is extraordinary.
Absolutely. I mean, with DLF, I think we're something like close to 300 people now globally in our R&D department. I think it's something like 1 in 10 people at DLF are actually employed in the breeding and R&D division. So it's a huge part of the business. It's a huge investment, in the future. So yeah, it's a big job.
do they still get eureka moments? These researchers, do they get, I've cracked it?
100%. A couple of recent eureka moments. A few years ago, we started the development of a thing called microclover, which for most people in the turf industry, clover's a nasty weed, whereas clover actually can fix atmospheric nitrogen. Well, fertiliser costs a lot of money. It also has a high carbon footprint. So by using this extra small leaf clover and sowing it into the mixtures for things like landscape and even football market now, for things like local authority, schools and colleges, this kind of thing, you can fix atmospheric nitrogen, you get a much better quality sward, and it's kinder to the environment, and bees like it as well. So you tick all the boxes. And then another one, probably the biggest in DLF's history, was the development of the new 4-turf tetraploid ryegrasses, which, as opposed to the traditional diploids, they've been a breakthrough. There's probably not a football or rugby club in the country that isn't using our tetraploids now on their pitches. I would say probably 90% of the lawn market uses the tetraploids because they're so much more stress tolerant, much more greener, more nitrogen efficient, and massively more disease resistant. So as we've just been talking, all the focus is on disease, and this new kind of ryegrass, and it literally was one of our breeders, Christophe in France. He worked on this little side project. Everybody thought he was crazy, and he developed the first true turf type tetraploid, and it's been a massive breakthrough. So yeah, it's fantastic.
Well, Derek, I always enjoy talking to you because I always learn something. So thank you very much, and we'll see you again soon.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Cheers, Scott.